It was well past midnight when Henry Wells, a janitor at SpaceX, rolled his cleaning cart down the empty hallway. The soft squeak of the cart's wheels echoed off the sterile, polished floors of the building. Normally bustling with activity, the SpaceX headquarters had fallen quiet as the hours ticked by, leaving only the hum of machines in the background. At 55 years old, Henry's body had begun to show the signs of years spent working hard. His hair, once dark, was streaked with gray, and his hands were rough with calluses from countless years of labor. But he wasn't ready to go home yet. He needed the extra hours. His wife, Janet, had been battling a chronic illness for 3 years now, draining their finances with mounting medical bills. His daughter, Lily, was a senior in high school and full of dreams, especially the dream of attending MIT, but the costs of her education were beyond what they could afford. Wiping the sweat from his brow with a rag tucked into his back pocket, Henry pulled out a photo from his wallet. It was a picture of his family, Janet smiling through the pain of her illness, and Lily holding her science fair trophy proudly. He smiled to himself, feeling a swell of pride. Lily was the one who gave him hope, the one who had always been so sharp, so full of ideas. She had the potential to change the world, if only they could help her get to college. "Almost done, sweetheart," Henry whispered to the photo, speaking to Janet. "Just 2 more hallways." The thought of his daughter always gave him the strength to keep going. Lily had been a star student, winning science fair awards year after year. This year, she had designed a water filtration system that could clean dirty water using simple, affordable materials. An idea that had impressed all of her teachers and judges. She was destined for greatness. Henry knew it. "Just a little longer," he muttered to himself, shoving the photo back into his wallet. He grabbed his mop and continued down the hallway, mopping the floors with methodical strokes. Suddenly, the lights above flickered on, brighter than before. Henry stopped in his tracks. The building was always quiet at this hour, and he wasn't expecting anyone else to be around. Was it security? He glanced around quickly, trying to look busy. His cart had already passed over this section of the hallway, but he kept mopping, not wanting to attract attention. Footsteps echoed from around the corner, growing closer. Henry focused on his work, keeping his eyes down. The footsteps stopped, and he could hear someone approaching from behind. "You're here awfully late," a voice said. Henry froze. He looked up to see none other than Elon Musk himself standing just a few feet away. He'd seen Elon around the SpaceX offices over the years, but had never spoken to him. Elon, dressed casually in a black t-shirt and jeans, seemed surprised to find anyone still working at this hour. "Just finishing up, sir," Henry said, his throat dry. He wasn't sure what else to say. Elon gave a small nod, scanning the hallway with tired eyes. "You're always here late, aren't you?" Henry hesitated. He wasn't sure how to respond. Should he admit he was working overtime for the extra pay? But something about Elon's tone felt less like a boss and more like a person genuinely interested. "I prefer the quiet, sir," Henry said simply. Elon's gaze moved from Henry's mop to the small cart where Henry had placed a family photo. The photo was well worn, and Henry had never expected it would attract much attention. Elon's eyes lingered on it for a moment before returning to Henry's hands, rough from years of work. "What's your name?" Elon asked. "Henry Wells, sir," he replied. "How long have you worked here, Henry?" 10 years in August," Elon nodded slowly. "That's longer than most engineers stay here," he observed, a hint of curiosity in his voice. Henry wasn't sure what to make of that comment, so he stayed quiet, his mind racing. He had learned long ago that silence was often the best answer, especially when talking to someone like Elon Musk. Elon took a few steps closer, glancing back at the family photo. "Your wife?" he asked, pointing to the woman in the picture. Henry tensed slightly. He wasn't used to anyone touching his personal items, even if it was Elon Musk, but he let it go. "Yes, that's Janet, and that's my daughter, Lily. She won the science fair this year." Elon raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. "What was her project?" Henry couldn't help but smile, a wave of pride washing over him. "She built a water filtration system using sand, charcoal, and shells she found at the beach. It worked well enough to clean dirty water, and the judges were impressed. They said it was college-level work." "How old is she?" Elon asked. 17, a senior in high school." Henry said, his voice swelling with pride. She wants to study engineering. MIT is her dream. Elon studied Henry carefully. She must be applying soon then. Henry's smile faded slightly. Yes, she is. But college is expensive, sir. I don't know how we'll afford it. He paused, not wanting to mention the financial struggles directly, but it hung in the air between them. Elon nodded as if he understood without needing further explanation. You're working late to help her get there, Elon said, more of a statement than a question. Henry nodded. And for Janet's medicine, he added, feeling unexpectedly vulnerable. He wasn't sure why he'd said it, but something about Elon's calm presence made him open up. Elon gave a small, understanding nod. He glanced at his watch, and for a moment, Henry thought the conversation might end. But Elon did something unexpected. Instead of walking away, Elon turned and made his way over to a nearby bench. He sat down, patted the seat next to him, and gestured for Henry to join him. Tell me more about your daughter's project, Elon said. How did she come up with the idea? Henry blinked, surprised. You're interested? Elon's eyes sparkled with interest. I like to hear about what young, talented people are working on. How did she come up with it? Henry hesitated for a moment, but then he sat down beside Elon, feeling a warmth in his chest as he spoke about Lily's hard work and ingenuity. He explained how Lily had arranged the materials in layers, the reasoning behind her choice of materials, and how she had tested the filter with different types of contaminated water. As he spoke, he realized that Elon was not only listening, but asking insightful questions, showing a genuine understanding of the science behind the project. For the first time that night, Henry forgot about his exhaustion and the long hours he had already worked. He felt like a father, proud of his daughter rather than a janitor. The conversation flowed naturally, and when it ended, Henry realized that nearly 20 minutes had passed. I'm sorry, sir, he said quickly, standing up, feeling embarrassed. I didn't mean to take so much of your time. No need to apologize, Elon said with a slight smile. Your daughter sounds remarkable. Henry smiled, his heart swelling. She is, he agreed. She should be working here one day. Perhaps she will, Elon said quietly. Keep up the good work, Henry. Good night. With that, Elon stood and turned to walk away, disappearing down the hallway toward his office. Henry stood there for a moment, trying to process what had just happened. Why would Elon Musk take the time to talk to him, a janitor? He couldn't make sense of it, but he was too tired to dwell on it for long. He returned to his cleaning cart and pushed it down the last hallway. As he did, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. What he didn't know was that, as Elon walked away, his mind was already racing with possibilities, ideas that would not only change Henry's life, but the lives of thousands around the world. The next few days passed in a blur for Henry Wells. His life, once a constant grind of cleaning floors and tending to his family's needs, seemed to carry an odd energy after his brief but unexpected encounter with Elon Musk. It was almost as if he had somehow been seen, truly seen, for the first time in years. He went about his work in the days that followed, his mind drifting back to that conversation in the hallway. He couldn't stop thinking about what Elon had said. Perhaps she will. That phrase echoed in his mind over and over again. It was an offhand comment, but to Henry, it held a promise. Could someone like Lily, with her natural talent, truly find a place at SpaceX? Could she, with her science fair winning ideas, be recognized for something beyond her family's financial situation? Henry didn't expect any answers soon, but something told him that his life was about to change in ways he could never have imagined. Days later, as he was wiping down the kitchen counter in the early evening, his wife Janet walked in, her face lit up with surprise. Henry, you won't believe this, Janet said, holding up an envelope. This came for Lily today. Henry took the envelope, his heart pounding. The address was from a well-known educational institution, MIT. He thought it might be a rejection letter. After all, how could they afford the application fees, the traveling expenses, or the tuition? He opened it cautiously, his hands trembling. The letter was short and to the point, but the words jumped off the page. We are pleased to inform you that Lily Wells has been selected for a full scholarship to MIT's engineering program. Henry couldn't breathe. He read the words over and over again, making sure he wasn't imagining things. A full scholarship to MIT? It didn't make sense. How could this be? It wasn't like Lily had applied for it. There had been no official application process, no interviews. And yet here it was, a chance for Lily to go to the best engineering school in the world. And it was all paid for. "Mom! Dad! Look!" Lily's voice broke through Henry's thoughts. She had just come home from school, her backpack still slung over her shoulder. When she saw the letter, she stopped in her tracks, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Wait, did I get in? No way!" Henry nodded, his voice thick with emotion. "Yes, Lily, you got in. You're going to MIT." Lily's eyes welled up with tears, and she ran over to hug her father. "But how? I didn't even apply. I didn't have the money for the application fees. How is this possible?" "I don't know, sweetheart," Henry said, his voice shaking. He looked at Janet, and she simply shook her head in awe. "But somehow, this is happening. It's real." The next few days were a whirlwind. Lily started preparing for her new life in Cambridge, eagerly gathering information on her future college, while Henry tried to make sense of it all. He couldn't shake the nagging feeling that this sudden miracle had something to do with Elon Musk. That conversation in the hallway had made him wonder, but he still couldn't figure out why someone like Elon Musk would take an interest in them. Then one night after dinner, just as Henry was finishing cleaning the dishes, his phone buzzed. It was an email from SpaceX. He opened it, and his heart skipped a beat. The subject line read, "Reassignment opportunity for Henry Wells." He clicked on it, his pulse quickening as he read the contents of the email. The message was short and to the point. "Dear Henry Wells, due to a recent internal review, we are offering you a reassignment to a day shift position within SpaceX's engineering labs. This will come with a 30% increase in salary. Your new supervisor will be Janet Taylor, and you will report directly to her in Building C starting Monday at 8 a.m. Your expertise and diligence have not gone unnoticed. We look forward to your continued contributions. Best regards, SpaceX Human Resources." Henry stared at the screen, utterly stunned. A day shift position in the engineering labs? A 30% pay increase? This was nothing short of a miracle. He thought about the long hours he had spent cleaning those very labs, sweeping around engineers and technicians working late into the night. He had always dreamed of being part of something bigger, but he never imagined it would happen like this. "Janet, you need to see this," he said, his voice tight with disbelief. Janet came over and read the email with him. "This is incredible," she said, her eyes wide with surprise. "How? How could this happen?" Henry didn't have an answer. He had no idea why or how SpaceX would offer him such a position, let alone give him a raise. All he knew was that something about all of this felt connected to the brief conversation he'd had with Elon Musk. The next morning, Henry arrived at SpaceX early, his mind racing. He reported to the locker room, where he was given a brand new blue uniform with the SpaceX logo on it. This wasn't just a janitor's outfit, it felt different. It was a symbol of something bigger, a shift in his life he couldn't fully understand. Janet, his new supervisor, welcomed him into the engineering labs with a warm handshake. "We're excited to have you on the team, Henry," she said, her voice upbeat and welcoming. "This is a critical area, and we need someone reliable like you. You'll be helping with the upkeep of the lab, but we're also hoping you'll get more involved with some of the projects." As she gave him a tour of the lab, Henry was in awe. He had never been so close to the world of cutting-edge technology, engineering projects that would one day change the world. It was both thrilling and intimidating, but more than anything, it felt like an opportunity, a chance to learn and contribute in ways he never thought possible. By the end of the day, Henry had cleaned the labs, walked through the halls filled with engineers and technicians, and felt more out of place than ever. He wasn't one of them. He was just a janitor who happened to be lucky enough to work in the same building as these brilliant minds. But a part of him couldn't help but wonder, was this the start of something bigger? That evening, as Henry sat at the dinner table, a new thought entered his mind. Could this all be tied to that strange conversation with Elon Musk? He hadn't imagined it, had he? Perhaps the mysterious scholarship and job offer were no coincidence. Maybe Elon had noticed him, noticed his potential. But why? And how much was he really involved? He would soon find out. The days following Henry's reassignment to the engineering labs felt like a blur. Every morning he arrived at SpaceX early, excited yet nervous. His new uniform felt different. It was no longer just a janitor's uniform, but a symbol of a new opportunity. As he worked alongside his new supervisor, Janet Taylor, and cleaned the lab where SpaceX's engineers were creating the future, Henry couldn't help but wonder if all of this had something to do with the mysterious encounter he had with Elon Musk. He still couldn't believe that his daughter Lily had been selected for the MIT scholarship. And then there was the unexpected pay raise and the day shift position. Everything seemed to fall into place so quickly, too quickly for him to fully process. The changes felt like miracles, each one building on the last. One evening, as Henry walked into the living room after another long day at work, his wife Janet handed him a piece of paper. Her face was glowing with excitement. "Henry, you need to see this," she said, her voice filled with disbelief. He took the letter from her and scanned the contents. It was from the research hospital that had been treating Janet for her chronic illness. The letter explained that Janet had been randomly selected to participate in an experimental treatment program for lupus, a program that was fully funded and covered by a research grant. The program had shown promising early results, and they wanted her to start treatments immediately. The most surprising part was that the treatment would be entirely free of charge. Janet's eyes filled with tears of joy as she read the letter aloud. "This is unbelievable. It's like a miracle," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. Henry sat down heavily, unable to take it all in. For the past 3 years, Janet's condition had been a constant source of worry. The medical bills had piled up, and the treatment options seemed limited. But now this unexpected opportunity had appeared out of nowhere, offering a chance for recovery that they hadn't even dreamed of. How is this even possible?" Henry asked, still in shock. "I don't know," Janet said softly, her hands shaking as she clutched the letter. "But it's happening, and it's all free. No cost to us at all." As they sat there in stunned silence, Henry's mind began to race. This sudden turn of events was too much of a coincidence. It had to be connected to something. But what? And who could have arranged it? The next morning, Henry woke early, still lost in thought. As he prepared for work, he glanced at his phone. There was a message from SpaceX's HR department. He opened it, and the subject line read, "Special assignment for Henry Wells." He opened the email, his pulse quickening as he read the contents. "Dear Henry Wells, we are pleased to inform you that due to your exemplary performance, you have been selected for a new assignment. Starting next week, you will be transferred to the Engineering Labs project team, working directly with our technical advisors. This new role comes with additional responsibilities and a significant increase in salary. You will receive further details upon reporting to your new supervisor. Best regards, SpaceX Human Resources." Henry's breath caught in his throat. A new role within the engineering lab? He had only been there for a few days, and yet they were offering him a more prominent position. A salary increase too. How could this be happening? When he arrived at SpaceX that day, he was called into Janet's office. She looked at him with a smile that mixed surprise and admiration. "I think I know what this is about," she said, gesturing for him to sit down. "This new role you're being offered isn't just a routine promotion. It's part of a larger shift here at SpaceX." Henry sat down, still reeling from the email. "I don't understand. I've only been here a short time. Why would they give me such a big opportunity so quickly?" Janet's smile grew a little wider, as if she had been expecting this. "I can't tell you everything, Henry, but I can tell you that you've caught the attention of someone important." Henry's heart skipped a beat. Someone important? His thoughts immediately went to Elon Musk. Had Elon noticed him again? Could this be part of the mysterious changes that had been happening in his life? "Don't worry," Janet continued. "This new role will give you more exposure to the work we do here. You'll be working with the team on engineering projects and giving feedback on some of the new designs. This is a big opportunity, and it could lead to more down the line." Henry wasn't sure what to say. It felt like the world was shifting beneath his feet. He had gone from cleaning floors in a building full of engineers to being invited to work directly with those same engineers. and now it seemed like the future was opening up in ways he couldn't have predicted. But something still gnawed at him. He couldn't shake the feeling that someone, perhaps Elon, was orchestrating all of this. That evening, Henry sat down at the kitchen table, trying to process everything. Lily had spent the evening working on a new science project, and Janet was preparing dinner, still smiling from the news about her treatment. For the first time in months, the Wells family felt a glimmer of hope, a hope that had been sorely lacking in recent years. And then, it happened again. Another unexpected change. Lily burst into the kitchen, holding a thick envelope in her hands. Her eyes were wide with excitement, and she could barely speak as she handed the letter to Henry. "It's from MIT," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Henry opened the envelope with trembling hands, his heart in his throat. This time, it wasn't just a scholarship offer. The letter informed Lily that she had been selected for a special engineering program at MIT that included full tuition, housing, and a stipend for living expenses. The program was designed to nurture future engineers and innovators, and they had specifically chosen Lily based on her science fair projects. "This is crazy," Lily exclaimed, her voice trembling with disbelief. "I didn't even apply for this. How is this happening?" Henry and Janet exchanged looks, both of them speechless. Another miracle, it seemed. But just like the treatment for Janet's illness, just like the job offer for Henry, this too felt like it had been orchestrated. Maybe this is all part of the same thing," Henry said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. "Maybe someone saw potential in us, someone who's been watching, helping us when we didn't know how." The next morning, Henry arrived at SpaceX once again, but this time, his mind was buzzing with even more questions. What was really going on? Could all of these changes, Lily's scholarship, Janet's treatment, his job promotion, really just be a coincidence? He didn't have answers yet, but he knew one thing for certain. His life and his family's life was changing forever. And somewhere in the shadows of SpaceX, someone was making it happen. The weeks that followed felt like a whirlwind for Henry Wells and his family. The changes that had come so suddenly were starting to feel more like a dream than reality. Janet's health was improving with the new experimental treatment, and she was able to get out of bed with less pain than she had in years. Lily's scholarship to MIT was now a reality, and she had begun preparing for the next step in her journey. Henry, on the other hand, found himself immersed in the world of SpaceX's engineering labs, a place that once seemed far beyond his reach. Every day he worked alongside the team, cleaning the lab and offering feedback on projects as he had been asked to do. At first he had felt like an outsider in a world of cutting-edge technology, but over time he became more comfortable. He was allowed to observe the engineers working on their prototypes, and sometimes when there was a lull, he would even offer small suggestions based on his own experience with mechanical systems. It was during one of these quieter moments that Henry found himself once again in the engineering lab, this time cleaning around a set of desks where a group of engineers was struggling with a mechanical arm prototype. The arm was supposed to pick up delicate objects, like an egg, without cracking it. But no matter what adjustments the engineers made, it kept malfunctioning. The sensors weren't working properly, and the movements were jerky. Henry had been quietly observing for a while, moving his mop across the floor. He couldn't help but notice the way the mechanical arm kept jerking to one side, almost as if it was fighting against itself. It reminded him of an old car he had once worked on, one with a misaligned wheel that tugged to the left no matter how much you tried to correct it. His hands itched to do something about it, but he hesitated. He wasn't an engineer, just a janitor. Still, the problem gnawed at him. The engineers had tried adjusting the programming, but the arm's movements weren't improving. He stood there, his mop forgotten in his hand, studying the arm. He could see the issue clearly. It wasn't the programming. It was the alignment of the joint. It was ever so slightly off, just a millimeter or two, but it was enough to cause the jerky motion. Without thinking, Henry moved closer to the workbench. He had worked as a mechanic for years before coming to SpaceX, and his hands knew what to do. He grabbed a small wrench from the workbench, carefully loosened the bolts on the arm's joint, and made a small adjustment, shifting the alignment ever so slightly. Then he tightened the bolts and tested the arm by hand, moving it gently to check for smoothness. It worked. The arm moved fluidly now, no jerking, no fighting against itself. Henry stood there for a moment, his heart racing. He hadn't intended to do anything so bold. He knew that, as a janitor, he wasn't supposed to touch any of the equipment. But the problem was so obvious to him, and the fix was so simple that he couldn't help himself. He quickly put the wrench back where he had found it, wiped down the area, and rushed back to his cleaning cart, hoping no one had seen him. His heart was still pounding in his chest, his palms sweaty. What if the engineers found out? What if he got in trouble for touching something that wasn't his to fix? At the end of the day, the engineers gave up on the arm for the day, frustrated and defeated. They left the lab, leaving the table covered with broken eggshells and their notes. Henry finished cleaning the lab, his mind still racing. He had fixed the arm, but what if he had made it worse? He couldn't stop thinking about it, and the more he thought, the more anxious he became. What if his small adjustment had ruined the arm? The next morning, Henry arrived early, hoping to undo whatever he had done. He went straight to the mechanical arm, intending to try and adjust the joint back to its original position. But when he got there, he found the engineers already gathered around the arm, excitement filling the air. "It's working perfectly," the lead engineer exclaimed. "We don't know why, but it's working. No issues with the sensors this time." Henry froze in the doorway, his mop hanging from his hand. He had barely touched the arm, and yet somehow it was functioning perfectly. The engineers had no explanation for the sudden improvement. They were all too busy marveling at the arm's flawless movements to notice Henry, quietly standing in the background. He turned away and continued with his cleaning, his mind spinning. He couldn't believe it. He had done something that no one else could fix, something that had stumped the engineers for days. But there was no recognition. The engineers would never know that it was his small adjustment that had solved the problem. To them, he was just a janitor, a faceless worker who cleaned the floors while they did the important work. It was around noon when the team gathered again to test the arm. Henry was mopping the floor nearby when the lead engineer turned to him, noticing him for the first time. "Hey, Henry, can you come over here for a second?" the engineer asked, gesturing toward the arm. Henry felt his stomach drop. Was this it? Was he going to be reprimanded for fixing the arm without permission? The engineer walked over to him and stopped in front of the arm, which was now moving smoothly. "We were having trouble with this thing all week, and now it's working perfectly. Do you know anything about it?" Henry swallowed, his heart racing. He didn't know what to say. Should he admit that he had made the adjustment? Should he explain what he had done? Before he could answer, Elon Musk appeared in the doorway. He had been walking through the lab when he noticed the commotion around the mechanical arm. He stopped and observed the engineers for a moment before his eyes landed on Henry. "Elon, this is Henry Wells," the lead engineer said. "He's been with us for a few weeks and we're just trying to figure out how this arm is suddenly working so well." Elon looked at Henry for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he turned to the engineers. "You know," he said slowly, "sometimes it's the people with the most practical experience who notice things others don't. Maybe Henry saw something you missed." Henry blinked, unsure if Elon was speaking in jest or if he actually believed that he had fixed the arm. But then Elon walked up to Henry, put out his hand, and gave him a nod of approval. "You did a good job, Henry," Elon said, his voice low but sincere. "You saw what others missed. Keep it up." Henry stood there stunned. Had Elon Musk just acknowledged him? Had he just complimented him for fixing a mechanical arm? Elon turned to leave, but before he did, he stopped and looked back at Henry. "I'll be in touch with you soon," he said with a faint smile. "You're more valuable than you think." As Elon walked away, Henry stood frozen in place, trying to process what had just happened. His hands were still trembling, but not from fear. They were trembling from excitement. For the first time in years, he felt like he was truly seen, like his skills and his experience actually mattered. What Henry didn't know was that this moment would mark the beginning of something even bigger. Elon Musk had recognized his potential, and soon he would change Henry's life forever. The days that followed Henry Wells' unexpected recognition by Elon Musk felt surreal. His days in the engineering lab became more intense, as Henry found himself immersed in new, exciting tasks. As the engineers continued their projects, he was tasked with assisting them more directly, offering insights and suggestions. particularly when it came to mechanical issues. At first, he still felt like an outsider, just a janitor in a new role. But over time, he began to feel a sense of belonging, a connection to the world of high-tech innovation that had always seemed so far beyond his reach. His work in the lab grew steadily more significant. Henry started contributing to discussions, offering ideas and solutions for the mechanical systems they were building. He realized that his years of hands-on experience as a mechanic had equipped him with a unique perspective. He could spot problems others overlooked, and his practical knowledge was becoming invaluable to the engineers around him. Meanwhile, at home, the changes were becoming even more pronounced. Janet's health had continued to improve. The experimental lupus treatment had shown promising results. She was able to move more freely, with far less pain than she had felt in years. She had even started volunteering at a local community center, helping other people navigate the healthcare system. It was an unexpected turn of events. After so many years of struggling with her illness, she was now helping others who were going through the same things she had experienced. Lily, too, was thriving. MIT's acceptance letter had opened doors for her, and she threw herself into her studies with fervor. Every day she learned more, pushed harder, and dove deeper into her passion for engineering. It was a dream coming true, but it was also a constant reminder of how far they had come from the years of financial struggles and uncertainty. But there was one thing still on Henry's mind. He couldn't shake the feeling that the mysterious chain of events, his reassignment at SpaceX, Lily's scholarship, Janet's treatment, was somehow connected. He didn't know how or why, but it all seemed to point back to that night he had spent talking to Elon Musk in the hallway. Could Elon have arranged all of this for his family? The thought both baffled and humbled him. It was late one evening, a few weeks after the last conversation with Elon, when Henry received a strange message on his phone. It was from SpaceX Human Resources. The message read, "Henry, please come to the executive conference room tomorrow at 9 a.m. We need to discuss your future at SpaceX." Henry felt a surge of panic. Was this it? Was his moment of success a fluke? Was he going to be fired for doing something he shouldn't have? He tossed and turned that night, imagining the worst. His stomach churned with the possibility of losing the new role he had grown so comfortable in. The next morning, Henry arrived at SpaceX early, his heart racing. He walked through the building, trying to ignore the knots in his stomach. As he reached the executive conference room, he hesitated for a moment before knocking on the door. When he was called in, he stepped inside, only to be met by an unexpected sight. Sitting at the table was Elon Musk, along with several other people from the engineering department and a woman he hadn't seen before. She looked up as Henry entered and smiled. "Please sit down, Henry," Elon said, gesturing to the chair next to him. "We've been reviewing your work here at SpaceX, and we wanted to discuss some new opportunities with you." Henry sat down, still unsure of what was going on. Elon turned to the woman next to him and introduced her. "This is Dr. Evelyn Harris, our Chief Technical Advisor for the Mechanical Engineering team. We've been discussing your contributions, and we think you might be a good fit for a new role." Henry blinked in confusion. "A new role?" Elon nodded. "Yes. We've been impressed with your ability to solve problems, especially with mechanical systems. Your hands-on experience is invaluable. In fact, we think you might be able to contribute in a more formal capacity to our engineering projects." Henry's heart skipped a beat. Could this really be happening? He had always dreamed of being more than just a janitor, but he never imagined he'd be sitting in a meeting like this, surrounded by some of the most brilliant minds in the world. "We're offering you a position as a technical advisor," Elon continued, "to work close." Henry felt a lump form in his throat. The recognition, the respect, it was more than he had ever hoped for. He had worked so hard, both in his previous jobs and at SpaceX, but he never imagined his practical knowledge would lead to such an incredible opportunity. "I don't know what to say," Henry said, his voice thick with emotion. "I've always just wanted to help, but I never thought this could happen." "You've earned it, Henry," Elon said, his voice firm. "We believe in giving people the chance to show what they can do. You've done that." Before Henry could respond, Dr. Harris spoke again. "You'll need to meet with your new team soon, and we'll go over the details of your new role. But we're excited to have you on board." Henry stood up, his mind racing. He shook hands with Elon and Dr. Harris, still processing everything. As he left the conference room, he couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. This was it, the moment when everything changed. He was no longer just a janitor. He was part of the team. As he walked back to his desk, Henry glanced around the building. It felt like a new world now, one where his skills were valued, where his future wasn't defined by his past. But more than anything, he knew one thing for sure. Everything that had happened, from the scholarship to Lily's MIT acceptance to Janet's treatment, had led him here, to this moment. And he had no idea how it all came to be, but he was going to make the most of it. As he sat down at his desk and began to look over the details of his new role, he couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude. Someone had seen him, really seen him, and for the first time in a long while, Henry believed that his life had meaning, that his future was full of possibilities. The weeks that followed Henry Wells' promotion to technical advisor felt like a blur. He threw himself into his new role at SpaceX with a sense of purpose and excitement he hadn't felt in years. Working alongside Dr. Evelyn Harris and the rest of the engineering team, Henry was no longer just a janitor, cleaning up after others. Now he was solving real-world problems, making a tangible impact on the cutting-edge projects that SpaceX was known for. Every day he was exposed to new ideas and technologies that pushed the boundaries of what he had imagined. His practical experience with mechanical systems gave him a unique insight into the challenges the engineers faced, and he was quickly gaining their respect. More than once, he had found solutions to problems that had stumped the engineers for days. His ability to think outside the box and apply his hands-on knowledge made him an indispensable part of the team. At home, things were equally transformative. Janet's health had improved significantly thanks to the experimental lupus treatment she was receiving. For the first time in years, she was able to go for walks and take care of daily tasks without feeling drained. She was even starting to volunteer at a community center, helping others navigate the healthcare system, something she had never been able to do before. Lily, too, was thriving. MIT was everything she had hoped for, and more. The engineering program was rigorous, but she thrived in it, finding herself surrounded by like-minded students who shared her passion for innovation. She was excited about the future, knowing that her dream of becoming an engineer was finally within reach. For the first time, the Wells family felt like they were truly moving forward, leaving behind the financial struggles and uncertainty that had once defined their lives. Despite all the positive changes, there was still one question lingering in Henry's mind. How did all of this happen? The scholarship for Lily, the job offer at SpaceX, Janet's treatment, everything seemed to have fallen into place too perfectly, too quickly. Henry couldn't shake the feeling that someone had orchestrated it all. But who and why? One evening, as Henry sat down at the kitchen table after a long day of work, his phone buzzed. It was an email from SpaceX's Human Resources Department. The subject line read, "Meeting with Elon Musk, a personal invitation." Henry's heart skipped a beat. Elon Musk? Why would Elon want to meet with him? He had already spoken to him a few times, but those were brief encounters, not personal meetings. He opened the email, his hands trembling slightly. "Dear Henry Wells, we would like to invite you to meet with Elon Musk in person tomorrow at 2 p.m. in his office. He has been following your progress and would like to discuss your role and future at SpaceX. Please confirm your attendance at your earliest convenience. Best regards, SpaceX Human Resources." Henry read the email several times, still in disbelief. What could Elon Musk want with him? He wasn't sure if this meeting was a formality or if something bigger was at play. Either way, he knew it would be a significant moment in his life. The next day, Henry arrived at SpaceX early, his nerves buzzing with anticipation. When the time came, he walked to Elon's office, feeling like he was about to step into the unknown. As he entered the room, he was greeted by Elon Musk himself, sitting behind his desk, his usual calm, calculating expression on his face. "Henry, come in. Please, have a seat," Elon said, motioning to the chair across from him. Henry sat down, trying to steady his breathing. Elon looked at him for a moment, as though weighing something in his mind, before speaking. "I've been following your progress closely, Henry," Elon began. "I've been impressed by the work you've done in the engineering lab. You've proven yourself time and again with your practical knowledge and problem-solving skills. It's not often that someone without formal training brings such value to our team. Henry's mind raced. Was this it? Was this the moment he was being offered a permanent place in the engineering team? He had never imagined that his skills would be recognized in such a way, let alone appreciated by Elon Musk himself. "I appreciate the opportunity, sir," Henry said, his voice steady, despite the whirlwind of thoughts in his head. "I'm just doing my best, and I'm grateful for the chance to contribute." Elon nodded, his eyes focused intently on Henry. "It's more than just doing your best, Henry. You're bringing a new perspective to the table. You've shown us all that sometimes real-world experience matters more than degrees or credentials. Your work has impressed not just me, but the whole team, and I think you deserve more than just a technical advisor role." Henry's heart skipped a beat. "More?" he asked, unsure if he had heard correctly. "Yes," Elon said, leaning forward slightly. "I've been thinking about your future here at SpaceX. I want to offer you a new position, one where you'll be able to lead projects, mentor other engineers, and use your knowledge to solve some of our most pressing challenges. It's a step up, one that comes with more responsibility, of course, but I believe you're more than ready for it." Henry's mind was reeling. A leadership position? Could this really be happening? "I'm offering you the role of senior technical lead," Elon continued. "You'll be in charge of a small team, and you'll work on projects that are critical to the future of SpaceX. This is a significant promotion, but it's also an opportunity to shape the direction of our engineering efforts. I think you're the right person for the job." Henry sat in stunned silence, trying to process the enormity of the offer. He had come from humble beginnings, a mechanic who never imagined he'd be in a position like this. And now Elon Musk was offering him a chance to lead. I don't know what to say," Henry stammered. "This is beyond anything I could have imagined. I'm just a mechanic. How could I possibly take on something like this?" Elon smiled slightly. "You've already proven yourself, Henry. You've shown that you don't need a formal education to understand how things work. You've got what it takes, and this is your chance to put that knowledge to good use." Henry was speechless. The enormity of the moment began to sink in. He had worked so hard for so many years, just trying to make ends meet for his family. And now his life was changing in ways he couldn't have imagined. Elon stood up and extended his hand. "I know this is a big decision, but I believe you'll make the right choice. We're excited to have you in this new role." Henry shook Elon's hand, still in disbelief. "Thank you, sir. I won't let you down." As Henry left Elon's office that day, he felt a surge of gratitude and disbelief. His journey had come full circle. From a janitor cleaning the floors to a senior technical lead at SpaceX. It wasn't just a job, it was a new beginning for him and his family. That night, when Henry returned home, he found Janet and Lily sitting at the dinner table, excitedly talking about their day. When he told them the news, their reactions were filled with joy and disbelief. "It's happening, Dad!" Lily exclaimed, her eyes wide. "You're really going to lead a team at SpaceX?" Janet, too, couldn't contain her tears of happiness. "You've earned this, Henry," she said, squeezing his hand. "I always knew you had it in you." As Henry looked at his family, he felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Everything that had happened, the scholarship for Lily, the treatment for Janet, the job offer from SpaceX, had led him to this moment. And he knew that no matter where life took him from here, he would never take for granted the power of being seen, truly seen, for who he was. Henry Wells had always been a man of routine, an early riser, a worker who took pride in his ability to provide for his family. But now, with a new role at SpaceX and the support of his family behind him, everything had changed. His life was no longer defined by the long hours of cleaning or the constant struggle to make ends meet. Now it was about something bigger, leading a team, solving complex engineering challenges, and shaping the future of technology. The first few weeks in his new role as senior technical lead were a blur. Henry dove headfirst into the work, determined to prove that Elon Musk had made the right decision in promoting him. He worked closely with Dr. Evelyn Harris and the rest of the team, contributing his practical experience and hands-on knowledge to the projects that were pushing the boundaries of space exploration and technology. The engineers around him began to see him not as a janitor turned leader, but as someone with a valuable perspective, someone whose experience had equipped him to see problems from angles others had overlooked. One of his first major projects was working on a mechanical system that would be used in SpaceX's next-generation spacecraft. The project had been stalled for months because of a recurring issue with the propulsion system. The engineers had been trying to fix it for weeks, but nothing seemed to work. Henry, with his deep knowledge of mechanical systems, took a fresh look at the design and immediately spotted a small misalignment in the pressure regulators. It was a small fix, one that had eluded the team because they were focused on more complicated solutions. But once Henry made the adjustment, the system worked flawlessly. The engineers were astonished. They had spent so much time on this problem, and here was Henry, a man with no formal engineering background, who had solved it in a matter of days. "Henry, this is incredible," Dr. Harris said, looking at the new system in awe. "You've just saved us months of work. How did you see that?" Henry shrugged, feeling a sense of pride that he couldn't fully articulate. "It's just what I've seen before in machines," he said. "Sometimes it's the little things that get overlooked." Word quickly spread about Henry's contribution to the project, and he earned the respect of the entire engineering team. It wasn't just about fixing problems. It was about thinking differently, seeing beyond the obvious, and applying his hands-on knowledge in ways that others hadn't considered. The team started coming to him more frequently for advice, and Henry found himself in the position of mentoring younger engineers, teaching them how to think practically and approach problems from a real-world perspective. But as much as he loved the work, Henry still had a lingering question. How did all of this happen? The promotion, the job, the scholarship for Lily? It all seemed too good to be true. He couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been pulling the strings behind the scenes, guiding his family toward success. He suspected Elon Musk had a hand in it, but he still wasn't sure how much involvement Elon had in the events that had unfolded. One evening, after a long day of work, Henry found himself sitting at the kitchen table with Janet. Lily was out studying for her upcoming finals, and Henry and Janet had a rare moment of quiet. They sat together drinking coffee, and Henry finally decided to ask the question that had been on his mind for months. "Janet, do you ever wonder why all of this is happening? Why things have changed so suddenly?" he asked. Janet looked up from her coffee, her expression thoughtful. "I've been thinking about that a lot," she said. "I don't know why it's happening, Henry, but I do know that we've been given a chance to start over, to live a life we never thought possible." Henry nodded, still uncertain. "But who's behind it? How did we get so lucky?" Janet smiled softly. "Maybe it's not luck. Maybe it's because we've worked so hard, even when things were tough. Maybe someone out there noticed that we were just trying to survive, and they wanted to help us reach our potential." Henry leaned back in his chair, contemplating her words. He still didn't know for sure, but something deep inside him told him that Janet was right. The changes that had come to their family weren't just random acts of fortune. Someone had seen them, truly seen them, and had decided to help them in ways they never could have imagined. The next day, Henry's suspicions were confirmed in a way he never expected. He had just finished a meeting with his team when he received an email from Elon Musk's personal assistant. The subject line read, "Meeting request with Elon Musk, a personal discussion." Henry's heart skipped a beat. Was this the moment he had been waiting for? The email invited him to meet Elon in his office the following afternoon. It wasn't just a routine check-in, it was a personal request. Henry's mind raced with questions. What did Elon want? Was this about his recent success? Or was there something more going on? The next day, Henry made his way to Elon's office with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. As he entered, Elon looked up from his desk and smiled. "Henry, it's good to see you again," Elon said, standing up to greet him. "Please, have a seat." Henry sat down, trying to steady his nerves. He had no idea what this meeting was about, but he knew it was important. Elon gestured for him to relax, and then he spoke. "You've done remarkable work, Henry," Elon said, his tone calm but sincere. "I've been following your progress closely, and I have to say, I'm impressed with how quickly you've adapted to your new role. You've become an integral part of the team here at SpaceX." Henry nodded, grateful but still unsure where this conversation was headed. "Thank you, sir. I'm just doing my best to contribute." Elon smiled as though he were about to share something important. "You've done more than that. You've proven that talent doesn't always come from a degree or a fancy background. Sometimes the best people are the ones who have real-world experience, like you. And that's why I've called you here today." Henry's heart began to race. Was this it? Was Elon finally going to reveal the truth? "I want you to know," Elon continued, "that everything that has happened in your life, from the scholarship to Lily's acceptance into MIT to Janet's treatment, it's all connected. I've been quietly helping your family because I saw potential in you. I saw someone who could contribute far more than anyone had realized. I believe that sometimes you need to be given the opportunity to show what you're truly capable of." Henry sat there stunned. He had suspected as much, but hearing it directly from Elon Musk made it all so real. "I did it because I believed in you, Henry," Elon said, leaning forward slightly. "And I wanted to make sure that you had the chance to succeed. That's the purpose of Project Night Shift, to find people with untapped potential and give them the resources they need to thrive." Henry's eyes filled with tears as he processed Elon's words. This wasn't just a random stroke of luck. It was a deliberate act of recognition, an investment in his future and his family's future. "I don't know what to say," Henry whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "You don't need to say anything," Elon replied. "You've already proven everything I needed to see. You're exactly the kind of person we need here at SpaceX. Now I want you to continue leading your team and using your skills to solve the next big challenge." As Henry left Elon's office that day, he felt like he was walking on air. Everything had changed: his job, his family's future, even his sense of self-worth. He wasn't just a janitor anymore. He wasn't just a man trying to survive. He was a leader, a problem solver, and above all, someone who had been given the chance to prove his worth. That evening, as Henry sat down with Janet and Lily, he shared everything that had happened. Janet's eyes filled with tears of gratitude, and Lily's face lit up with pride. "Dad, this is amazing," Lily said, her voice filled with excitement. "You've come so far." Henry smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "We all have, Lily, and we're just getting started." The next few months passed in a blur of excitement and growth for Henry Wells. As the senior technical lead at SpaceX, he found himself at the forefront of some of the most ambitious engineering projects in the world. With each passing day, his confidence grew as he worked on designs and solutions that would push the boundaries of space exploration. But it wasn't just about the technical work. It was also about the way he was transforming within the company. Henry, the man who had once been a janitor, was now a leader, respected and relied upon by his peers. The team he led was diverse, filled with some of the brightest engineers SpaceX had to offer. Henry found himself mentoring younger engineers, teaching them the practical skills he had honed over the years. He shared stories from his mechanic days, how fixing an old car could sometimes teach you more than any textbook. And in turn, the team taught him new ways to approach problems, introducing him to advanced theories and technologies he had never considered before. It was a perfect blend of hands-on experience and cutting-edge innovation. For the first time in his life, Henry felt like he was truly part of something bigger. The work was hard, the hours were long, but there was a sense of purpose and fulfillment that Henry had never known. He wasn't just fixing machines anymore. He was helping create them. Every day, he contributed to technologies that would one day take humanity to Mars and beyond. At home, the changes were just as profound. Janet's health continued to improve. The experimental lupus treatment had worked wonders, and she was now able to live a normal life, something they hadn't thought possible just a year ago. She had even taken on more volunteer work, helping immigrants navigate the healthcare system, and was becoming a voice of hope for many in the community. Janet was no longer the sick woman confined to a bed. She was an active participant in life again, something that Henry had almost forgotten was possible. Lily, too, was thriving. MIT was everything she had dreamed of, and more. Every time Henry spoke to her on the phone, he could hear the excitement in her voice. She had already begun working on her own research projects, and her professors were impressed by her natural ability to think critically and creatively. Her dream of becoming an engineer was no longer just a dream. It was her future, one that was now full of promise and potential. One evening after dinner, Henry sat down at the kitchen table with Janet, just as they had so many times before. It had become their nightly ritual to catch up on the day, share stories, and talk about their hopes for the future. This time, however, Henry had something special to share. "You won't believe this," he said, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Janet raised an eyebrow. "What is it?" "Well," Henry began, "you know how we've been working on that new propulsion system for the spacecraft? The one that's supposed to be a key part of the Mars mission?" Janet nodded, intrigued. "Yes, I've heard you talking about it. What happened?" Henry leaned forward, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "We finally cracked it. After months of testing and tweaking, we've got the propulsion system working flawlessly. The team is ecstatic. It's a huge breakthrough." Janet's eyes widened. "That's incredible, Henry. You did it." Henry shook his head. "We did it. It was a team effort. I may have helped with the design, but everyone contributed. And this is just the beginning. The next step is putting it into production, which means we're on track for the Mars mission." Janet reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "I'm so proud of you, Henry. You've come so far from where we were just a year ago. I knew you had it in you." Henry smiled, grateful for her unwavering support. "I couldn't have done it without you, Janet. You've been my rock through all of this." Their conversation was interrupted by a phone call. It was from MIT. "Hello?" Lily's voice came through the speaker, her tone excited but anxious. "Lily, what's wrong?" Henry asked, immediately concerned. I got it, Dad," Lily said, her voice trembling with excitement. "I got the internship offer with SpaceX." Henry's heart skipped a beat. "Are you serious? That's amazing, Lily. I can't believe it. They want me to join the engineering department this summer. I'm going to be working on real projects, just like you," Lily said, her voice barely containing her excitement. Henry's smile grew wider. "You've earned this, Lily. You've worked so hard for it. This is just the beginning for you." Janet looked over at Henry, her eyes filled with pride. "This is incredible, sweetheart. We're so proud of you." As they continued their conversation with Lily, Henry couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude. It seemed like everything was coming full circle. Lily's future was bright, Janet's health was better than ever, and Henry was leading the way at SpaceX, contributing to some of the most ambitious projects humanity had ever dreamed of. That night, after they had hung up with Lily, Henry and Janet sat together in the living room, reflecting on everything that had happened. The house felt warm and alive, filled with the sound of laughter and the promise of a brighter future. For the first time in a long while, Henry felt like he was exactly where he was meant to be. "We've come a long way," Henry said, his voice soft. "A long way from the days when we didn't know how we were going to make it." Janet smiled, her hand resting on his. "We have, haven't we? And it's all because we didn't give up. We kept going, even when it felt impossible." Henry nodded. "We've been given a second chance, and we're going to make the most of it." As they sat together in the quiet of their home, Henry felt a sense of peace settle over him. He had come from humble beginnings, someone who had never imagined a life like this. But now, thanks to the recognition of someone who saw potential in him, everything had changed. The future was wide open, full of possibilities. The next chapter of their lives was just beginning, and no matter what happened next, Henry knew that the most important thing wasn't the titles or the recognition. It was the journey, the people who believed in him, and the impact they could have on the world. He had been given a chance, and now he was going to make it count. Months passed, and Henry Wells found himself in the midst of one of the most exciting phases of his life. Not only had he become a senior technical lead at SpaceX, but his family's lives were now intertwined with the company in ways he never could have imagined. Janet's health was stable, Lily had settled into her internship at SpaceX, and everything seemed to be aligning perfectly. Yet despite all the successes, there remained a sense of awe in Henry's heart about how far they had come and how it all started. One day, as Henry sat in his office reviewing the latest propulsion system designs, he received an unexpected email from Elon Musk. The subject line read, "Project Night Shift, a follow-up meeting." His heart skipped a beat. Project Night Shift, the initiative that had quietly transformed his family's life, had changed everything. He had always suspected that Elon had a bigger plan, but now it seemed like that plan was about to unfold further. The meeting was scheduled for the next day. Henry arrived early, trying to calm his nerves. When he entered the conference room, Elon was already there, seated at the head of the table, his usual focused expression on his face. He motioned for Henry to take a seat. "Henry," Elon began, "you've come a long way since that night we talked in the hallway. I've been following your progress, and I'm very impressed with what you've accomplished. Your leadership, your contributions to the team, everything has exceeded our expectations." Henry smiled, humbled, but still a bit overwhelmed by the man who had changed the trajectory of his life. "Thank you, sir. I'm just trying to do my part. I couldn't have done it without the team, though." Elon nodded. "I know, but there's something about you, Henry. Your perspective is unique. You've got this ability to see things others don't, and that's why I think you're ready for something bigger." Henry leaned forward, intrigued. "Something bigger?" Elon smiled slightly. "Yes, I've been thinking about how we can expand the reach of Project Night Shift. It's not just about giving one person a chance. It's about finding hidden potential in people who, for whatever reason, never had the opportunity to show what they can do. You've been part of this project, and I want you to help me take it further." Henry's mind raced. The project had already given him more than he ever imagined, but now it seemed like it was going to have an even greater impact. "What do you need from me?" Henry asked. "I want you to help identify talent," Elon said. "Just like you were once, there are thousands of people out there who have skills and potential but are overlooked or underappreciated. I want to expand this initiative globally. We'll find people, mechanics, carpenters, janitors, even people with no formal education, but who have the hands-on experience and problem-solving skills that can make a real difference. We're going to bring them into SpaceX, train them, and give them opportunities to shine." Henry's heart pounded. This was bigger than anything he had imagined. Not only had Project Night Shift changed his life, but now he had the chance to help others in the same way. The ripple effect was growing, and Henry was about to be at the center of it. "I'll do everything I can, Elon," Henry said, his voice filled with conviction. "I believe in this. I've seen what it can do for people like me. I want to help others see that same opportunity." "I knew I could count on you," Elon replied with a nod. "I'm excited to see what we can accomplish together." As the meeting ended, Henry left the room with a sense of purpose. He was no longer just a participant in this movement. He was going to help shape its future. The idea of reaching out to people who had the potential to change the world but had never been given a chance. It was inspiring, and it gave Henry a new sense of direction. This wasn't just about rockets and technology. It was about people, about finding the hidden potential in those who had been overlooked and giving them the opportunity to succeed. Later that week, Henry sat down with Janet and Lily at the dinner table to share the news. He could see the excitement in their eyes as he told them about his new role. Janet's eyes filled with tears, and Lily beamed with pride. "Dad, that's incredible," Lily said. "You're not just making a difference at SpaceX. You're going to help change the lives of so many people, just like you were helped." Janet smiled warmly. "We've been blessed, Henry, and now you're giving others that same blessing. I couldn't be prouder of you." As Henry looked at his family, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. It wasn't just about the work he was doing at SpaceX or the leadership role he had earned. It was about the legacy he could create. He had been given the chance to succeed, and now he could help others do the same. Weeks turned into months, and the Project Night Shift initiative began to take shape. Henry worked closely with Elon and a dedicated team to identify people with hidden potential. They reached out to underprivileged communities, offering training, mentorship, and opportunities at SpaceX. The results were astounding. People who had been stuck in low-paying jobs, people who had been told they were just janitors or just mechanics, were now contributing to groundbreaking engineering projects. They were problem solvers, innovators, just like Henry had been when Elon first noticed him. One of the first individuals Henry helped bring into the program was a mechanic named Carlos Alvarez. Carlos had been working in a small repair shop for years, fixing cars with little more than his hands and a few tools. But when Henry saw his work and spoke to him, he knew Carlos had something special. After joining SpaceX, Carlos went on to play a key role in developing a new type of engine that would significantly reduce fuel consumption in spacecraft. It was one of many success stories that came from the initiative. As Henry continued to mentor others and help guide them on their own journeys, he realized that the true power of Project Night Shift wasn't just in what it did for people. It was in what it did for the world. By recognizing hidden talent and giving it a chance to grow, they were changing the way people viewed success, opportunity, and potential. One day, as Henry stood in the SpaceX headquarters, watching engineers work on the latest rocket designs, he couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude. His journey had been filled with challenges and hardships, but it had also been filled with hope. And now he had the opportunity to give that hope to others. As the sun set over the SpaceX campus, Henry thought back to the night when he had been just a janitor, mopping floors, not knowing what the future held. He had been seen, he had been given a chance, and now he was helping others do the same. For Henry Wells, this was just the beginning. The ripple effect had begun, and it was only getting started.